Hello, beautiful, and welcome back to day 2 of the Yogalicious retreat, where we are treating ourselves, taking a bit of time out of each day this week to practice yoga, to open up space inside of the body, to bring our awareness within us, to relax, to restore, to renew, and to savor life. May this practice of grounding, centering, orienting, creating, and relating enrich every part of your life. Today's featured pose on which we will focus is a forward folding shape. So in day 1, we practiced length and extension in both the spine and the legs. So we had a long line in several different positions and orientations on the mat. And here in day 2, we're going to be folding at the hips, enjoying yummy stretches in the lower back and hips, perhaps throughout the back and shoulders, and more of a release to gravity in certain positions. We're going to start again with a more active, warming, energizing, flowing pose, and then we're going to move that into more relaxing poses and even poses completely on the floor, either lying in a forward fold or in child's pose. So our first pose, again, once we've done our short upper body and spine warm up, will be in standing, but then we're going to come back down to the floor. Again, if you want to start at the end and just enjoy a soothing, calming, restorative pose, then you can take your child's pose or your Balansana now. Or you could take a seated forward fold with extended legs in a restorative variation, or come along with me through our foundational work, and then we'll treat ourselves at the end of the practice. So for now, find a comfortable stance or seat. You could be seated on the ground. I've got a folded beach towel underneath me today, but it could be a cushion or a block. And it could be seated in a chair, or you could be standing in a grounded and stable position. Close or softly focus your eyes and tune into the natural flow of your breath for several cycles. Allow your focus to settle into this space and time, letting go for now of the past and the future, to-dos, responsibilities, and clear your space, sort of metaphorically, symbolically, with your arm movements. So we're going to clear our whole kinesphere, our body space around us, with an inhale, raising our arms above the head, and with an exhale, spreading our wings wide to lower the arms back down. And then we'll follow the breath twice more. And then our next movement through the inhale into exhale will be a side bend. If you're standing, you can clasp one wrist in the other hand if you like, or just bring the palms together. If we're seated, we might be able to make some contact with our chair or the floor, supporting us as we create more length on one side. And then the other side. Pendling or pendulating from side to side. You creating some nice spaciousness and length through the front body, the side body, and the back body. So although today we're focusing on forward folding, it's always good to bring in some movement in the different planes of the body, including some gentle twists, which are our next movement. With the exhale, bringing out through the middle body, inhaling to come back to center. You can raise the arms or keep them low. And anytime you like, this is meant to be a retreat, a treat for you. So make any sounds or utterances that seem right in the moment, any intuitive movements that your body is asking for. Make it a practice to answer that call or find a time to provide that. And we're going to enjoy some forward folding. So again, if you're jumping right into our final pose, you'll actually have two choices for that, both of them deeply flexing in the hips. In one, which will be our seated forward fold, or Paschimottanasana, we will have the legs extended, and the other, in our Balansana or child's pose, we will have the knees bent. So I'll just give a sneak preview. If you have cushions or pillows or things with which to prop this up, I highly encourage that. For example, with our blocks, we can bring the legs either hip width distance apart or wider, and then create some sort of support for our pose so that we can fully relax for a few moments there, or as long as you have. And then also in child's pose, which I'll show at the end, we can create whatever sort of supportiveness or props that are going to feel good for us. So standing up for our first pose if you like, or taking a seated variation would be great. To stimulate our energy and our circulation, we're going to take a chair pose, or Utkatasana. I do have another video entirely about variations of that pose, but briefly, we'll be engaging in the thigh muscles and the core, and really this is a full body exercise, like our plank pose. It really warms and gets the energy and the oxygen and the blood moving throughout our entire body, so it's very enlivening. But we could take our chair pose against a wall, pressing the back up against the wall and squeezing through the thighs. That's a nice way to practice alignment and length through the spine, because we can have both our hips and our shoulders pushing back into the wall for a very active chair pose. We can also take a fully seated variation where we're grounded through the feet and the hips, and then reaching with extension through the spine with the arms in front of us or overhead, and we can even fold a bit at the hip joints there in our seated position. Or we can take a stance either with the feet hip width apart, or when they're close together, we can squeeze the knees together. Or we could also take a block here, and that might feel nice to squeeze between the thighs or between the knees as well, to activate all of the muscles to hug into our center line. So it's a really great way to build stability and balance and a bit of strength. And as I said, we have a long back. We can imagine the shoulders and hips pressing back onto an imaginary wall. Sometimes it can be helpful to place our hands on our lower back to remind that space to be long. And then, of course, we're using quite a bit of core support. We're hugging our abdominal muscles all the way around the trunk in towards the spine to help us hold a deeper squat into our chair with the arms reaching forward, or if it feels good to you, also overhead. Now, there's all kinds of variations to chair pose, some of which we could take into a twist, or a bind. Really, the sky is the limit. Your imagination is your limit. But now we'll choose our favorite version of chair pose for today and practice that for a minute or two. Of course, go into and come out of the chair whenever you like. Respect your own body's signals, and I'll see you here in chair. Spreading our toes wide on the floor, whether we're seated, standing against the wall, or standing. Squeezing the legs, the hips, and the core in towards the midline. We'll sink on down into our chair. And breathe. Savor the work, the strength in the body. Hold that one position or experiment with some different related shapes. Working to keep the weight evenly distributed on both the right and left sides. It's a dynamic play. As I said, rest when you like. Okay, here come the treats. We are taking our yummy forward fold or forward bend. When we tip forward to the long back halfway lift position, which could also be with support, folding deeply in the hips and maintaining length in our spine, that is called Ardha Uttanasana. Then, if we choose to have the feet wider apart, this is a different shape, but a similar experience, at least for today, of folding in the hips and letting the upper body invert or hang forward. We could take that with a flat back, with wide legs. That'll be called Pasarita Padottanasana. So we can take a halfway lift there with support, or bring the fingertips, the blocks on any setting or another prop to bring the floor up to you, and then we'll hang forward. So in the narrow leg position, this is often called Ragdoll, and we can actually swing the upper body side to side, forward and back, and do circles to provide a delicious release in the spine and upper body. So again, play, experiment, find out which of these forward folds feels the most yummy to you. One more, of course, if we had taken our chair pose, seated in a chair or on something comfy, we can also create a forward fold there that can also serve like a child's pose. So there's a deep flexion happening. We can create some cushioning here to support us. And then let gravity do the work. Enjoy a very passive moment. Focus in on the breath. And if you wanted, you could take in a breathing ratio too, just again to give the mind a focus to calm and bring our attention to maybe a 4 counts in and 4 counts out breath, or 5, or whatever duration makes the most sense for you. So let's take our forward fold. In my case, I'm going to demonstrate a narrower shape of a forward fold, and that will be the Rahastasana or Uttanasana. Sometimes we have more than one Sanskrit name for the yoga pose, but in English, we'll do a standing or seated or sitting on the ground, of course, forward fold. Please enjoy. Might feel good to roll through the spine to come down, or just fold directly at the head. And you can, of course, play between extending to the halfway lift and coming down. Oh, that's nice. Or rolling all the way up, standing all the way up to our Halasana or our Tadasana mountain pose. And then rooting through the feet, on through the legs. We'll seek to release something in upper body. Maybe shake the head out. Yes, no, maybe. Swing in your Ragdoll, side to side, with arms relaxed. Or take your opposite thumbs into opposite elbows and let the upper body dangle. Upside down. Closed eyes. Or just softly gazing to the floor. And now the treatiest of all the treats, the dessert at the end of our practice. You could, of course, take a Shavasana just like we had done yesterday and just lay it down. But if you're enjoying exploring this forward folding, hinging at the hip shape, it's creating some yummy spaciousness in the lower back and hips. Again, you could take that seated forward fold as I had showed at the beginning of the practice with bent or straightened knees and all the props you need to create a nice nest to support yourself while we relax there for a couple of moments. Or if it works for you, we'll take a child's pose. So lots of options, as you can imagine, for the child's pose as well. Balasana is the classic where the knees and thighs are next to one another, parallel, and we fold forward over that, the arms alongside the body into a very compact little ball shape, in which I like to massage my feet. Or we can take an extended child's pose, or Utthita Balasana, so we could have the knees together or apart for that, and then the arms will reach out in front of us. And if the knees are tender or sensitive, skip it again, do the extended leg version, or it might be helpful to provide a bit of padding under the knees, as you like. or even behind the knees. Sometimes when we feel sort of stuck or congested behind the knees, a bit of maybe a rolled hand towel or a bath towel here behind the knees might also provide some relief. Of course, it's very personal, but those are some ideas, and of course, I'll be sharing some more as we go along to make this child's pose, this Balasana, your own, to make it more comfortable and accessible so that you can really go deeply in your own practice and experiencing an inner sense of awareness and calm. Again, if some support underneath your head might feel good, if your head's not reaching the floor, that might be more relaxing for the neck, then by all means, create whatever sort of situation, props best serve you, and that make this pose a retreat, a treat, something we can savor and enjoy. And then take your time coming out of whichever child's or forward folding pose you have chosen. That's a very inward going, closed position, so it might feel good after you've taken a pause with an extended spine in a more neutral position, maybe to open the heart and the chest a bit again. And then find yourself in a comfortable seat to finish off our practice. I want to thank you for joining me and for being here and sharing your energy, whether that be in real time, the week of the retreat, or at a later time. Just appreciate your energy and want to acknowledge you for taking the time as well for your own self-care, for nurturing and cultivating your own inner space so that you can then bring the best possible version of yourself, the relaxed, the compassionate, the present version of yourself into your larger life. Again, I hope it enriches every facet of your life. And please do let me know how it goes, how I can best support you on your journey. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you. Aloha and namaste.